Okay, welcome back to the Snap. A slightly hung over Michael Heaver here. Patrick, a glorious night at Wembley yesterday.
Yeah, it was fantastic, very exciting. I'm sitting here in my special 1966 replica England manager's tracksuit, the old Alf Ramsey. I won't kiss the badge, but this only comes out on very special occasions. I'm not too hungover because I watched the game in kind of Roy Keane fashion in terms of I ate smoked salmon sandwiches and drank a couple of glasses of white burgundy. So I'm in danger of becoming middle class, but I was thrilled with what I saw.
Yeah, no, look, I was out in London for the game. Absolutely fantastic atmosphere, and a real feel-good factor in the country at the moment. And of course, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do it in the final. But we're never going to have a better opportunity to do it, are we? At Wembley, oh, absolutely buzzing for it. I really hope the boys bring it home.
Yeah, if we win, I think I'm going to have to hop on a Sunday evening tube and maybe found dancing in the fountains at Trafalgar Square or something like that. It's got to be a bit of an all-nighter, isn't it?
Sounds good. I'll meet you there. But in terms of what we're going to be talking about on the show today, it's an issue, Patrick, that really was at the heart of the EU referendum that fueled, in many ways, the push for Brexit. EU migration is what we're going to talk about first of all today, because it's really come out, and I think this is a real scandal actually that hasn't got quite the coverage it deserves. The Telegraph did do a story on it. Essentially, the EU migration to the UK underestimated by more than 1.6 million between 2012 and 2020. Quite incredible, Patrick.
This is amazing statistics, and it just goes to show no wonder there's been such an impact on the labour market, access to public services, that we're in a 21st century country in the information age, and we had literally no idea, our authorities had no idea how many EU nationals had settled in the UK, and this has come out under the government's registration scheme to allow EU nationals who are already here to carry on living here. And as you say, 1.6 million extra, and that includes nationalities like Romania. There were thought to only be 400,000, big number anyway, of Romanian nationals in the UK, but over 900,000 Romanian nationals have registered under the scheme. And I remember back to when Romania and Bulgaria were given rights to the UK labour market, and those of us who warned, on the back of what happened with the A8 countries, that there was going to be another big influx. We were told we were scaremongers. We were told we were bigots. They said only one person had turned up on the first day that they talked to at Gatwick Airport. Well, in fact, more than 5% of the entire population of Romania moved to the United Kingdom. How are you supposed to plan for an ordered society, transport, public services, employment and the like, when you're admitting that big an influx and you don't even know about it?
It's a classic example, actually, of sort of mainstream media shenanigans, because as you rightly point out, Patrick, around the time of Bulgaria and Romania and the doors being thrown open in that way, there was a lot of coverage around the time. And as the numbers have been exposed to be mammoth since then, you'll notice a lot of people have simply ignored that. But look, when we look at the Office for National Statistics, the new figures now show they've added an average of 93,000 per year to EU net migration from the year ending March 2012 to the year ending March 2020. Quite unbelievable, Patrick. And what do you think this says as well about, in terms of the level of information and the level of the quality of the information that we have in terms of the statistics? Because if the statistics are this bad on this area of policy, should we start to be quite skeptical about other areas as well?
I think we probably should. I think the knock-on implication is the government hasn't got any idea really about the total number of people who are living in the country. So How can they plan for the necessary scale of schools, hospitals, policing, all our other public services? The economic statistics kept by the government have always been somewhat questionable, and they get revised massively afterwards. So it's very disconcerting, and one suspects that at the heart of the immigration issue was an official desire to turn a blind eye as well, because the establishment knew that the ordinary people of Britain had cottoned on to the enormous scale of the influx. We remember Gillian Duffy confronting Gordon Brown in the general election, was it 2010, about it, and that they wanted to downplay this. But it's become more and more obvious now. Now we're out of the EU, this registration scheme got set up, and we get the true figures come through at last, that what was happening was completely unsustainable in terms of having settled communities and cohesive neighbourhoods.
Yeah, and just before we move on, I mean, the EU settlement scheme, as we're discussing, was expected to attract between 3.5 and 4.1 million applications, according to the 2019 Home Office analysis. This is what the Telegraph are reporting. But as the scheme's deadline approached at the end of June, 5.61 million people had applied, 2 million more than predicted. And I must say, Patrick, this all gets me thinking back to, I think it was around 2010, when David Cameron talked about delivering net migration of tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, something, of course, he couldn't deliver inside the EU. But perhaps now, with Brexit having happened, this is something that we could potentially see, well, we should potentially see the Conservative government moving towards, isn't it? Because we're already seeing, in terms of lower amounts of EU labour in the labour market, we're already seeing some huge wage rises, as we've previously discussed. And surely now this is something that we do need to look at, that we should be aiming towards, to bring net migration down from the ridiculously high levels of the 250,000, 300,000 per year.
Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But really, this is an issue where Boris Johnson has always lent towards the metropolitan liberal outlook, and doesn't seem to take any responsibility for this Tory promise being broken for 11 years in a row. And I think, I'm afraid, it's one of a number of growing issues now where the Tories deserve a bit of a spanking. They're not delivering on immigration. Their plans for carbon net zero and ripping out people's gas boilers, that's a really nasty one coming down the tracks. And there is a bit of a feeling about that the Conservatives are losing their way on some key Conservative issues. Immigration, after all, Boris Johnson has just extended an open house offer to all the Hong Kong British national overseas passport holders, rather than even trying to put together an international deal for them with partner countries like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, like he could have done. So he seems to have no responsibility as regards the scale of immigration. And a lot of people feel very disappointed by that. I think if the Labour Party was in any kind of half-decent shape that could be trusted by patriotic voters, you'd see the opinion polls a lot closer than they are, although obviously the Labour Party isn't in such shape.
Now, on the issue of illegal migration, and in particular this route across the Channel, which is just in the last few years completely and utterly spiraled out of control. More than 200 migrants picked up by Border Force crossing the Channel on Sunday. That means so far nearly 6,000 people have reached the UK in the first 6 months of the year via this route, according to analysis by the Press Association. Now, consider the fact that last year it was around 8,417 for the entire year, and it's close to 6,000 already this year. Now, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, has introduced to Parliament the Nationality and Borders Bill. We've heard, of course, a lot of speeches from Priti Patel about what the government intend to do, want to do to tackle this issue. But Patrick, do you have any faith that this is going to deliver and really change things?
No, I think there's a few things that could help at the margins. But the biggest factor, in my view, behind the either unwillingness or inability, call it what you want, of the government to tackle this issue, is that they're remaining, keeping Britain into a sort of thicket of international agreements, under the auspices of the European Court of Human Rights. There's the European Human Rights Convention, which that court adjudicates on. There are international treaties as regards handling of refugees, which were meant for a far, far different time than today's, mass economic migration, abusing the asylum route. So until we come out of those agreements and pass our own laws to determine our own immigration systems, I find it hard to believe that the government will do what's really necessary, which is offshore processing. And if you attempt to land in the United Kingdom via irregular or illegal routes, you shouldn't put a foot on UK mainland at all. So if your application's turned down, you can't say I've built up family ties. You can't say nowhere else will take me, because you'll be housed somewhere offshore or potentially in a third country. If the government goes down that route, they will kill this pull factor and they'll massively reduce the flow. If they don't, it's just going to keep going. And I can't see our border force or the RNLI pushing these little boats back out into the middle of the channel. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is all the Tories talking a good game. They've been promising to end this traffic for over a year now. And as you've just pointed out, it's actually escalating. They're taking the mick.
Yeah, and I think the basic fact is, unfortunately, the numbers are going to keep increasing for as long as those using or coming to Britain via this route illegally, using this route, if they pretty much know they'll be allowed to stay, then it's going to continue to escalate, sadly. And the only way fundamentally that is going to change is if people that come to Britain illegally via this route, the message goes out that they will not be allowed to stay. That is the only way of tackling this ultimately. And the last bit of analysis I saw from this was back in 2019, which was Sky News saying that just 6% of illegal migrants crossing the channel had been deported, i.e. this route has a 94% success rate. Now, I'd like to see some updated figures on that, but that to me is the fundamental point. If you overwhelmingly feel, that this route has even, a 90% plus success rate, I'm afraid the pull factor continues. And this very dangerous route with criminal gangs making huge amounts of money, unfortunately, this is going to continue to spiral out of control with even larger numbers.
I think that's bang on. And unfortunately, we're in a position where even though millions of us, even tens of millions of us, find this quite outrageous, let's be frank, we don't find it outrageous enough to vote for the Labour Party, for the opposition party, because we know they'd be 10 times worse. So the Tories are actually in a comfort zone politically, where they can make these false promises, they can talk a tough game and let us down time and again. But when we make a cold comparison, well, perhaps there are some people in the government who really do want to get a grip on this. Perhaps Priti Patel is one of them. Or you look across the aisle and there's Nick Thomas-Symonds and Keir Starmer and the whole no borders vibe of a Labour Party conference. They'd never tackle this in a million years, and they actually want to throw our borders open completely, as far as I can see. So the frustrating thing is that at the moment there's no obvious democratic outlet in which we can register our protest.
Well, look, guys, thanks for watching the snap. Do let us know, by the way, do you have faith in the government, Priti Patel, to deliver when it comes to tackling illegal migration? And what do you make of this EU migration scandal in terms of these figures that have come out? Do let us know down below in the comments, and myself and Patrick will be back soon.
Yeah, let's hope it's Monday morning with a sore head and a big smile after an England victory. Fingers crossed.
That sounds good. Cheers, guys.